And some people are still trying that today. In fact, this week I had at least 3 or 4 listing reviews. I do free listing reviews for people, and I had at least 3 or 4 that people are still launching products like that today. And it's just, it's, if you can make money doing it, more power to you. But if you're trying to start a business with an exit in mind, you do want to be serving a customer and help them to see value in what they're buying from you, right? And because ultimately a buyer isn't necessarily going to be interested in something that's very easy for them to copy themselves. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the approach people took back in, say 2014, 2015. I mean, why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, it was very quick money.
Precisely. But now really we need to be thinking about the longer game, having a bit more patience and building something into a valuable asset that a potential buyer is going to look at and say, yes, I would like to take that off your hands, please, for quite a lot of money. And the way to do that is to create something that has value to a particular group of people and to get in front of them. Actually, there's a great book on this if anyone's interested. It's called 12 Months to $1 Million by Ryan Daniel Moran. It's a pretty, I don't like the title that much. It reminds me a little bit of the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. It makes it sound a lot easier than it is. But, sometimes you've got to have a snappy title to get something to move. It's a good book. It breaks it down into a pretty simple process. Create a gateway product, build a suite of products around that, get in front of your customer, define who your customer is, figure out their pain points, their challenges, make sure that your products are effectively the medicine for their pain points, the solution to their problem, find out where they hang out and get in front of them, and create a group of raving fans. It makes it, I'm making it sound a hell of a lot easier than it is, right? There's a lot of hard work in there, but that's the straightforward process, Going to the moon is straightforward. You get in a rocket, you blast off, you go to the moon. That's not to say it's not incredibly technical and difficult. I'm sure Elon Musk, if he was listening to this, would be screaming about how complex it is, but you get the idea, right? It's straightforward, but there's a lot of hard work.
Still working on getting Elon on the podcast, but oh man, Andy, I have faith that Andy can do it. Yeah, I know, right? Or catch him on Clubhouse.
Yep.
So
yeah.
I think, the other confusion that's happened in this space between all the different types of buyers, the aggregators, everything else, is when you're going to build your brand and you're doing this amazing job, how do you go to sell and get the best multiplier for your business? Like, should you be looking at aggregators for the best multiplier? Should you just be casting a wide net? Like, what is the strategy there when you're looking for buyers to get the best possible multiplier?
Okay, so before we touch on that, let's talk about what the multiple is, because different people will have a different definition of what a multiple is, and that can make things a little bit overwhelming when people are researching this stuff. So here's what the definition should be. It should be a multiple of your trailing 12-month seller's discretionary earnings, which is basically your net income plus add backs. So people listening are probably like, well, what's an add back? An add back is essentially a cost on your profit and loss sheet, which you can add back because the new owner is not going to have to pay for it. So that includes the income that the owner is taking, for instance, but also includes things that have been done once and will never need to be done again. So all the photography associated with a particular product, well, you've done it. New owner is not going to have to do it. Any consulting you've had done, you've done it. New owner is not going to have to do it. Video, trademarks, all that stuff. Are you putting your phone through your business? New owner is not going to have to do it. So that's add backs. So the multiple is applied to your trailing 12-month seller's discretionary earnings. So suppose you've got a business that's doing seller's discretionary earnings, trailing 12 months is 100 grand. And it's 2 years old. It's reasonably diversified and it's growing. Probably going to get about a little bit more, 3x, right? 3 times that. But if you're doing 500K sales discretionary earnings, you've got massive off of Amazon sales, lots of intellectual property, huge growth, and the business is 5 years old, could be much higher, 4 or 5, even slightly higher now. some people in this space, some brokers in particular, they won't be talking about a 3x or a 4x or a 5x because they'll talk about monthly. So when I say 3x, they'll be saying 36x. Does that make sense? So you just divide that by 12. Do you follow that?
Oh, got it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
instead of a 3x, you're just getting a monthly payment, I guess, on it. Am I
It's
understanding
just
that
they
right?
like to. So it's 3 times. When I'm saying 3x, I'm talking about 3 times your 12 monthly sales discretionary earnings. Whereas what they will be saying is it's
The
36 times your
monthly.
average monthly across the trailing 12 months. If that makes sense. It boils down to the same thing.
Yeah. It's
So
either you're
that's
calculating it annually or monthly, and got it.
exactly.
Okay.
So traditionally, when we're selling a business, a multiple, forgetting e-commerce for a moment, a multiple might be something like anywhere between 5 and 8x. 6 and 7 was about right. In e-commerce, particularly because of all the risk tied up in businesses selling through a marketplace like Amazon, where you don't own the customer journey, you can easily be suspended. And just because it's so new to people, this concept of buying an e-commerce business, the multiples have been kept a lot lower. So until recently, 3x was about right, about standard, pretty good. But now multiples are going higher. And the reason they're going higher is we're seeing so many more people coming into this space, so many aggregators raising all that money. It's pushing multiples up.
Got it.
So I've moved away from your original question, which was, how do you get a good multiple? Lots of ways. First of all, going back to what we said before, you have to build a brand. You can't just be selling stuff. Nobody's going to want to buy a business that's just selling a collection of stuff because there's nothing there for them, right? You need to have a growing business which has still got some meat on the bone, which allows the potential buyer to recognize that you're going in the right direction, but there's still some growth there for them to realize. An efficient, well-automated business is going to push your multiple up. Age of the business is important. Geography, where are you selling? What marketplaces are you selling in? Some are going to be more attractive than others. How many SKUs have you got? How complex is your supply chain? How complex are your products? How risky are your products? All of these things matter.
And Katie wants to know, should the suite of products be all related in some way?
Ideally, yes. So
I mean,
if
you don't
you
want to be selling dog toys and kitchen faucets, right?
if you have a business which sells dog toys and kitchen products, that's fine, provided they're 2 separate brands. And then I would be making the argument in favor of actually those brands being in separate business entities, because it gets very, very messy. If you want to sell the business entity, if you want to sell the assets, it's not quite so bad. But even so, your accounts are going to need to be very clear as to what's the dog stuff and what's the kitchen stuff. I like to keep things neat and tidy in separate businesses. And so will a potential buyer.
Got it. So in terms of getting the best multiplier, you want to make sure that you're building a really awesome suite of products, that you're watching what your seller's discretionary earnings are going to be. So if your advertising is really, really costly, you might want to, really take a look at optimizing that and bringing that down, because those things are not going to include those ad backs, right? So you really want to make sure that your earnings at the end of the day are looking really good and that you're seeing growth over time. I know we were talking about this. We've had a couple people on recently. As you said, the space is growing. So we've had a lot of guests recently talking about this very subject. And I think it's important, and you've brought up a lot of points here that we haven't really touched on. So
yeah, it's a complex one, and it's, again, I use this word a couple of times already. It's one that people can get really overwhelmed in because there's so much information available on the internet now. There's so many Facebook groups, so many YouTube channels, so many podcasts. It can be very difficult to know what to do. There's a great book. I love book recommendations. If I may, I get nothing for recommending these, but there's a great book called Built to Sell. And I read that book before I sold my business, and it helped me to get everything nice and neat and tidy and properly organized. And this Built to Sell is a great book. It's a little bit like the E-Myth by Michael Gerber, in that it follows the fictional story of a mentor and a business owner. So the business owner wished to sell his business, and the mentor guided him through it. And eventually he went to a broker. And the worst thing you could possibly do is just decide, I want to sell my business, because you're not going to be ready to sell it. And that is the mistake that the character in this book made. He went to his mentor and said, I want to sell my business. And his mentor said, no. You can't just sell your business. You have to plan to sell your business. And so you need to get your business, even if you're not interested in selling your business now, probably one day you're going to be. So what makes a lot of sense is to get your business valued now by somebody qualified to do that, because then you know where you are. You have a reference point. Otherwise, you're trekking through the jungle with no map. And then you can say, okay, great, my business is worth 50 grand, 500 grand, 5 million, doesn't matter. And I would be willing to sell it for X. From there, you can reverse engineer it, or you can work with somebody to reverse engineer it and say, what are the things I need to do to get there? You stack them up like dominoes and you start knocking them down to A, make the business an attractive proposition for someone to buy, and B, make it valuable to reach that target.
And how do people find someone who can value an e-commerce business properly?
Well, it needs to be, well, for starters, there's e-com brokers. That's us. A little plug there. It needs to be somebody who's qualified on multiple aspects. So they need to have a deep understanding of e-commerce. They need to have a deep understanding of accounts, and they need to have a deep understanding of e-commerce accounts. They have a deep understanding of mergers and acquisitions. So those three things put together make somebody highly qualified to do this as an e-commerce broker, which is what Alison, my business partner, brings to the table. She's got 20 plus years experience in mergers and acquisitions, and she's a specialist e-commerce accountant. So once you get that valuation, you know where you are. You're not reaching in the dark.
Yeah,
you can start.
That's exactly what we're doing right now. We're having our business valued so that we can prepare to sell it, and it's so important to know what you don't know. You know, I have the pleasure of being able to interview people like you all the time and learn these things, but that doesn't mean that I know what I'm missing or what I need to work on in order to be able to sell my business. And there's no better time than now, because, you know, everything is really picking up on the buyer side. Like you said, you know, it's really, really crazy. So I love that, exactly how you put it out there. It's like, get it valued first. You know, if we were talking to an aggregator right now, they might say, well, just send it over to us and we'll let you know, right? But you're coming from that broker side where you're like, okay, know your value first, or what you can do to prepare for that, and then go from there. Right?
Yeah, that's the problem with a lot of these aggregators. You know, good people, I speak to them every day, but ultimately, naturally, business is business. They're going to want to get your business off your hands for as little as possible. And that probably means, we'll sell it to us now and avoid the broker fee. Avoid the broker fee is basically them saying, please don't go to a competent broker who's going to properly value your business and ascertain what your real seller's discretionary earnings are and your real add backs, because then we're not going to get it from you for as cheap as we possibly can.
Right. Yeah, it's great advice. So I think you've kind of answered all of my questions, but let's talk about red flags. So
Sure.
Of course, there's always going to be bumps and bruises in any business. There's going to be things that every business has that they kind of need to overcome, but or not overcome when they go to sell. But what are the big red flags? So let's say I've built a brand, everything looks pretty good on the surface. Is there anything when people are going to sell that a buyer will look at and go, oh my gosh, red flag?
The answer is it depends. There was certainly, when this kicked off a couple of years ago, buyers were a lot less agnostic and very, very frightened of certain categories. So supplements was a big no-no. However, some buyers now are finding they actually have the capability to handle that, particularly if the supplements are more on the foodstuffs side. So for instance, turmeric supplements, well, really it's just food. It's just ground up turmeric in a capsule, right? So that's one aspect. Electronics, right? Many buyers are not too keen on electronics or anything that may become technologically obsolete. So if you are selling something like that, I'm not saying you're not going to be able to sell it, but it's going to be about finding the right buyer. And for that, using a broker is key. Other red flags: age of the business. So we are seeing, again, because more money is coming to the space, there's more competition, buyers are willing to take on a little bit more risk. But generally speaking, businesses that are less than a year old are less sellable, but we are seeing very young businesses, 9-10 months old, now being sold. So it's not to say that you can't get it done, but age of a business is important. And in any case, you're going to sell your business for more if you've got a little bit more trading history. So those are two straight off the bat. Your accounts have got to be in order. So if you've got cash accounts and not accrual, get that organized now. Apart from anything else, you're not going to realize the full value for your business if they're not done appropriately. There's nothing an aggregator likes more than seeing cash-based accounts rather than accrual, because they know they can almost pull the wool over your eyes, if you like, in terms of the offer, especially if they know you're not working with a competent accountant. So
can you
that's
explain the difference between a cash-based account versus an accrual-based account?
Yeah. So suppose you've got a growing business and you're constantly using cash to buy more inventory. Say you've got $500,000 of inventory on hand. Your profit and loss statement is going to say that $500K of inventory is depressing your net income, but it's on hand, right? So it should be outside of the profit and loss sheet. But if your profit and loss sheet, so if your profit and loss sheet has your $500K net income, really it's $1 million when you consider the $500K stock on hand, right? So when a buyer comes to you direct and pitches you, we'll buy your business in 30 days with no broker fee, and you have cash accounts, you're going to undervalue your business by a lot. Or when an incompetent broker just refers you to an aggregator, doesn't actually do any work, the same thing's going to happen, because you haven't thought about the fact that 500K of inventory was on hand. Does that make sense?
Yes, exactly. Yep. You got to make sure that your accounts are in order and that you're working with an accountant who understands where your inventory should be placed when it comes to
relative to your profit and loss sheet. And I think I've done a reasonable job at explaining that, but this is precisely why, say, in ecom brokers, me on the e-commerce side partners with Allison, who is the absolute brain box on the number crunching side. So it's important that you work with somebody, whoever that is, that has experience on all sides of the equation.
That brings me perfectly into my next question, in terms of, you were getting a little bit into accounting and things like that. What things should brands have in place before they approach a broker and aggregator, in terms of, like, no past due taxes, good books, insurance? What are some of the things that you guys are looking at, to make sure that when you package that up and go to look for a buyer, that there's not going to be anything that's going to fall through the wayside and maybe blow up the deal?
Yeah. So when you sell your business, quite rightly, the buyer is going to do some really, really thorough due diligence, right? They're going to part with a lot of money in order to buy your business, hopefully. And therefore, it only makes complete sense that they're going to look under every nook and cranny of your business. It's important, therefore, that you get a head start on that process to make it as painless as possible for you and as smooth as possible for them, so that they don't come back and say, oh, well, actually, we're undervalued. We want a discount for this, and this. So things to think about: intellectual property. Make sure your trademarks are in order. Do you require patents or registered designs? What about copyright? Have all of these things looked at by a really, really good attorney. I'm all for bootstrapping your business and saving money, but when it comes to intellectual property, get it done by a pro. I mean, ideally, get it done by a pro right off the bat when you're starting. But if you didn't, do it now. Those are the main ones that will kill a deal. You are infringing on some intellectual property. It's very rare.
Interesting.
If you're
go ahead. No, go ahead.
If you're doing anything black hat, stop immediately and don't do it again. And keep records. And you really ought to, if you're asked about that type of thing during due diligence, you bear all. because the guys that are buying these businesses know what this industry is like. They know some of this stuff goes on, and with any luck, they're going to be transferring what they buy into their own, let's, we're talking about Amazon for a moment, their own accounts anyway. So any history you may have had of anything, if you've done some review manipulation, that type of thing that you shouldn't have been doing, even if it was a few years ago, tell the truth about it. Maybe you've got some back and forth correspondence with Amazon when you got suspended. Keep records of all of that, provide that, because if you don't, and then they find out, then you haven't been honest with them. That could kill the deal.
Some other things that I assume that if sellers have in place will get them more money in terms of multiples would be, you know, systems or maybe staff or, you know, maybe something proprietary like some software that they built to manage inventory, you know, anything like that. I assume, you know, that when you're shopping, that's like a huge value add for those people looking to buy.
Yep, all extremely important. If you've got systems, standard operating procedures in place, automations in place, perhaps you've come up with your own processes for things, for getting reviews through social media, you know, anything that you do that I like to talk about it, I call it micro agility, anything special and nimble that you do that has created the success of your brand, provided it's all within terms of service. Keep records of that. This is going to A, boost your valuation, and B, when you're having these conversations with a potential buyer, you can show them all this fantastic stuff. Here's all the great stuff I've done to build my brand. Here's what my brand can bring to you. Because remember, this buyer can potentially roll out all this neat stuff you've done to the other brands that they're buying. Potentially, you could even charge them a consultancy fee to teach them all this stuff. Launch new products for your brand and their other brands, perhaps. Lots of things you can think about.
Yeah, it's interesting. One thing that, you know, because a while back when Thrasher was pretty early on, I approached them because I was thinking about selling my business, my Amazon business. And the one thing that stopped me is they wanted, and I totally get this for like due diligence, but like really early on in the process, not to talk crap. I mean, I'm just sharing my experience. And you might be okay with it. So I'm just saying my own trepidation was they wanted full access to my account, like really early on. And you know, I was like, well, wait a minute. So I could give you full access to my account. You could pull all my data and mine my data and see all my tips and tricks. And, you know, I've been doing this for a lot of years. So I have some stuff that probably, you know, a lot of people don't know how to do or do it differently. You know, like you said, kind of some secret sauce. And that took me aback because I'm like, all right, there's this giant company that could easily take this data. I mean, of course they would say they wouldn't, but you know, human nature and, you know, they might say, you know, have some kind of NDA or whatever, but once that information's in your brain, it can marinate into, you know, ideas that are maybe an iteration, but are still, you know, originating from my, you know, what I was doing. So that was kind of scary for me. So, I mean, do you guys, how do you protect the sellers in terms of kind of their IP and you know, kind of like what they're doing if it's unique, you know, when you're shopping these deals?
So one thing I would say is that this space has come on a long way in the couple short years that this has been happening, and that type of thing doesn't happen too much. Generally speaking, a potential buyer should only get access to your accounts, and it should be read-only access once you're in the due diligence phase. NDAs have been signed, letter of intent signed, etc., etc. At that point, they're going to have access because they can't buy your business if they haven't seen it. You're not going to buy a house if you haven't been to see it and you haven't seen the report. So unfortunately, it is true that they will see the details of a business that they may then not go on to buy. And as you say, they may see some stuff in there that marinates in their brain, as you say, but they're seeing so many potential businesses. I really don't think it's that big of a deal, because if they did see stuff they liked, chances are they're going to like it enough to buy your business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's it. So that is, yeah.
How we protect sellers is when we're presenting a potential business to a potential buyer, it's anonymized. So they see the high level, broad information. If they want to see more, they need to pay a fee for us to unlock that information. Now, there are some buyers that we've built a relationship over time, and we know that they're serious, you know, vetted buyers. But if it's somebody new to us, say it's a competitor rather than a big aggregator, or it's a private individual, for instance, they're going to have to pay a fee to unlock that data. And whoever it is, they're going to have to sign an NDA. And so nobody gets to see any specific data until we've ascertained that they're not a tire kicker and they're seriously potentially going to buy this thing, and they've signed an NDA.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, like I said, this was a while ago, and I can't remember the exact terms, but I just remember and I'm pretty experienced in this space, just being a little bit taken aback by like, wow, you want all this stuff this early on? Like it was a little bit sketchy for me. Like you said,
Sure.
though, it's matured quickly, so I'm sure they might have some other things in place to kind of protect IP and systems and things like that. Are there any, I'm sure that you get a lot of brands that come to you that are, you talked about this a little bit before, kind of Me Too products, opportunistic, things like that, not really a lot of IP or things to protect. So we have a wide range of audience here, right? We have people just starting out, we have experienced people. So I always like to ask, if somebody who's starting out today and their end goal, they like Amazon, but they're like, you know what, I don't want to do this forever. I want to, build a decent sized business, sell it, and go do something else. What would you, somebody just starting out today, kind of what would you tell them to craft a business from the beginning that would be easier to sell, maybe a year from now?
I think it goes back to what I said before, is to build a brand, right? Build a brand around a particular group of people, ideally something you're interested in. You need to have patience and be prepared to play the long game, and think about this in terms of, well, if I was buying a business, what would I want it to look like, right? It's the same thing as if I was going to buy a house, right? So understand things from the buyer's point of view. Try and get into the mindset of the buyer. One thing that you could do is you could actually go and do some research, pretend for a moment that you are a buyer, and go and start doing some research into buying e-commerce businesses and think about things from their point of view. And that will help you to reverse engineer what you're going to do. Again, I would recommend the book Built to Sell. Once you're decently established, your business is, ticking over, get it valued. And then think about, okay, it's worth X. What would I be willing to walk away from? A way I like to think about it with that is, suppose you are drawing down a salary, or you're taking money out of the business in whatever form you are, whether it's dividends or salary or whatever. Find out what the business is worth and what you'd be willing to sell it for, and think to yourself, okay, it's worth X. How many years would I have to work drawing down this amount that I'm drawing down to make the same amount of money? And it's probably going to be a long time. If you have a gut feeling that you want to sell, it probably means it's time to start planning to sell. But the key, it's like I said before, is you can't just wake up and say, I want to sell. You need to plan. That's the key thing.
Yeah. For me, if I went back to 2012, when I started on Amazon, there are a lot of things that I would have done differently. And one of the, I've shared this before, but I think it's very relevant in terms of, I've made the mistakes so that you guys don't have to. So some of the things that I would say on that same kind of token would be, get an accountant super early on, and don't just go, the other mistake we made is we got an accountant, but we got some, guy locally in our small town in California who wasn't an expert in e-commerce, for a long time, like completely led us astray on what we, formation wise and, how we were doing things. So go out, find somebody who specializes in e-commerce accounting. That would be one thing super early on. Ben, the other things you talked about is trademark, getting the trademark up, ASAP, niching down to, not a ton, we had at one point 800 SKUs. I was trying to launch a SKU a week. It got to the point where the account was unmanageable. 80-20, even at that point, doesn't work because there's just so much to manage. So, keep focused. I would say anywhere from 5 to 20 products, probably no more than that. I mean, if you have variations, things like that, that can grow, but just management wise, you want to try to keep the business as tight as possible in terms of the more products you have. Now it's like, instead of having to manage 3 listings and make sure that they're perfect and the photography is perfect and you're just pushing those products, now you've got 30, 50, whatever, and you're trying to push all these different products. You're just going to get spread way too thin. So really stay focused, build the brand, make sure you got the insurance in place, make sure if you've got products that maybe are a little bit more risky, make sure that you do your due diligence there. If it's something that's consumable or something that's got batteries, et cetera, those are all a lot of things that you guys want to think about if you're just starting out now.
Yeah, I agree on all of that, and a couple of things you raised made me think of a couple of things. So I see it all the time in the Facebook groups. People will say, "Where can I get a trademark?" And somebody will chime in with, "Oh, you can do it yourself, for a few £100 or a few $100, just head over here and go and do it." And then somebody will chime in, "Yeah, I did that and I got my trademark." It's like, well, yes, you did. It's very easy to go and do it yourself, but the trademark's barely going to be worth the paper it's written on until you've actually had it done by a professional who has been able to get you a trademark, which has an extremely broad scope for anything and everything you may ever possibly sell. Your trademark's not worth very much. I made this exact mistake myself. I recorded a screencast of it a little while ago where I compared the trademarks I originally had applied for myself, and I thought I was fantastic after I'd done it, with the trademarks I did a year later after I'd realized my mistake. Exact same trademark, right? Same name, same logo, but one was done by me and one was done by a professional. Guess which one had the broadest scope of protection and added the most value to my business, right? Same goes for insurance. Don't scrimp on insurance and think that you can just fill in some form online. Talk to an experienced insurance broker and make sure you have the right coverage. Insurance is one of those things where you get the bill and you think, I'm never going to need this. And then one day you need it. And if you've been in a pickle without the right insurance, well, that's one way to make your business not sellable, right? So make sure that you're covered from that point of view, especially if you're thinking of selling your business entity, which a lot of people in the UK want to do, because we have something called entrepreneurs relief, which is a tax relief if we sell the business entity rather than the assets. Because of course, when you sell the business entity, the buyer is taking on the risk and the liability associated with that business. So you need to make sure you've always had the right insurance right from the very start, because somebody buying it now will now be liable for something that the business did 2 years ago. If you didn't, you got to make sure that you've got everything covered.
I love that. So one of the things that we love to ask people, even if it's not e-commerce related, in terms of you're no longer e-commerce, you're more of a service-based business now. But when you started the business with running the businesses, what are some really big challenges that you faced in your own business, and what did you do to push through those challenges?
Yeah, so there's one springs to mind, and it's a learning that I've taken to. I'm still building brands, actually, and the reason for that is I love it, but I need to still be on the ground and have an understanding of it. I'm going to advise people in this way. And one of the learnings I took from the first business, which was Beast Gear, was to jump through hoops. So for instance, I remember I was selling in the UK and I wanted to join the Pan EU program, which was going to allow me to fulfill my products pretty easily right across Europe. But I needed to, so this was about 2017, so it was a bit more difficult then. I needed to register for VAT in France, Germany, Italy, Spain, Poland, and the Czech Republic. And it was not an easy process. All sorts of forms to fill out. I remember, I think for Spain, I could only get documents translated by certain select group of translators on their registry. And I had to get some of my documents physically stamped with a wax seal by a registered notary. All sorts of crap that I had to do. It took weeks. But after I did it, I pretty much doubled my sales overnight. Now, how many people looked at that process and just thought, nah, not going to bother. Too much hard work. Not for me. I'm quite happy just taking over as I am. Well, that's fine, because for all the people that can't be bothered to jump through the hoop, when I jumped through the hoop, I emerged on the other side without competition. So when I see a barrier, I think, well, that's wonderful. So for instance, look at all this stuff now with inventory limits. People are frantically thinking about third-party warehouses. It is a massive headache, but if you can get yourself sorted, get your ducks in a row, and get on top of it better than anyone else, it's actually an opportunity for you, because it's a barrier, it's a hoop that you have to jump through. So when you see hoops in the road, it's very tempting just to turn around or take an easier path. Now, I'm not saying we don't want the path of least resistance in your business, but what I am saying is Hoops are transparent. Sonic the Hedgehog could see through them before he got to them. Look through the hoop. Think about what's on the other side. And if it's worth it, do it. So that was a big lesson.
That's great advice. And I feel like with Amazon, that's more true every day. I mean, they're constantly throwing up roadblocks for running your account, right? I mean, you got, products being taken down for like safety issues and all these FDA things. And like they update their AI bots and then they release them every 3 to 6 months, and you get, products taken down, you get, incompetent seller support, you get all these major issues where, yeah, a lot of people, and I've been there where I'm just like, screw this, I'm done with Amazon because there's so many roadblocks that are thrown up. But I agree with you in terms of, if you have the grit and the wherewithal to kind of step back from it and be like, okay, yeah, this sucks, but if I get through this, there's a lot of opportunity there. It's a long game.
Yep.
And if you can look at it like that, those are the people that are still around, who are still selling on Amazon, who are still making the money, are the ones who are, I've always said that my dad gave me advice, a long time ago. It was in regards to marriage, but it completely applies to business. He's like, you're going to have to eat a shit sandwich, right? It's like, what shit sandwich are you going to eat? And if you eat that, then, it doesn't matter where, if you're working a 9-to-5 job, you hate your commute, or you know what I mean? It's so like, you have to step back and look at Amazon and be like, okay, it's a different shit sandwich, but like, I'm going to eat it so that I can, I can progress and choose to eat it. That's a terrible analogy now that I'm thinking about it in terms of grossness, but you get the point in terms of,
it's a good analogy. I'm going to use it more in everyday life.
Please do. And I love when people with Scottish accents cuss. It's absolutely stunning. I love it. But yeah, I mean, I think that, stepping back from it, is, the grit, the determination to whatever it is to get to the next level. It's like at the gym or whatever, so many different ways to use that analogy. But yeah, that's completely great advice. Anybody who is here in the Zoom meeting, if you have any further questions for Ben, please drop them right now. While we're doing that, I'm going to ask Ben. We always like to ask this of our guests because, we're one of those people. If you're a real entrepreneur and you're not, learning every single day, you're gonna lose, because your competitors are. They're learning, new tricks, new tactics, new personal development, all those kinds of things. So you mentioned a few books, Ben, but anything else you listen to, watch that kind of pushes you through eating that shit sandwich?
Yes. I'll give you a fun, I'll give you a serious one and then a fun one. So serious book, I've got a bookshelf behind me. I'm just going to turn around and have a quick look. Start With Why by Simon Sinek is an absolutely amazing book, which has pushed me to constantly think about, both in terms of brand. So I spoke before about how important building a valuable brand was. In order to build a valuable brand, you have to think about the marketing of that brand. And Start With Why is a great book for thinking about how you market your brand. There's some great examples in there from like Apple and all sorts of stuff. But also you can take a slight sidestep from that. Constantly think about, what is your why? Like, why are you doing this? And for me, when I began to think about the fact that my business might have some decent potential and some potential to become something valuable that I could sell and make my family secure, well, that was my why, right? My family. So that's a serious one. And then a fun one is, so we have a 2-year-old daughter, and I watch a lot of kids' cartoons. And I suppose, I'm guessing you guys don't have this over there. We have a cartoon called Peppa Pig. You guys are going to have to look it up.
I've heard of it, but
I
no.
love Peppa Pig. My kids love Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig is awesome, because I'm so glad you like it, Amy. Otherwise, no one on this call, Andy was just like, what the hell is Ben talking about? Peppa Pig, I freaking hilarious, because it's, I don't know if you find this, Amy, but the writing, I think is written for the parents and not the kids. It's so funny. Like the adult humor that runs through that, it's just incredible. So I watch a lot of kids' cartoons at the moment, and Peppa Pig. You're having a bad day, you put on some Peppa Pig, and you're like, it's an excuse. You're like, I say to my daughter's called Isabel, I say, Isabel, do you want to watch some Peppa Pig? And she's like, yeah. Really, it's me that wants to watch Peppa Pig, right? So I'm like, oh, I've had a bad day, we'll put on some Peppa Pig.
I love that.
I just love their accents. Mommy pig, daddy pig.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, no, we're those evil parents that don't let our kids watch much TV and make them not eat gluten and dairy, and we're those people where when the server comes to our table at the restaurant, they're like, oh, these people really? But
I know
yeah.
I'm one of those too, except for Peppa Pig.
All right, good. I like that. You gotta have your cheats, right? Our kids watch. Like I said, we rarely let them watch TV, but they watch. What is it? It's a Amazon Prime dang it, I can't think of it. Anyway, it's like this, animated, computer generated kids show that they get to watch once in a while, but that's about it. So we're those mean, evil mean parents that make them go play outside. Like, it's sunny outside, go outside, leave us alone. So Ben, let people know how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. So I'm on pretty much all the main social media channels. My handle is at Ben Leonard Pro, for instance, on Instagram. I'm on LinkedIn, just search for Ben Leonard. It's Leonard, like the golfer Justin Leonard. Ecombrokers.co.uk. Head over there, click on sell your business. Even if you don't want to sell your business, just click on that, put in some numbers. We can get back to you with a rough idea of what your business is worth. No hard sell. We don't necessarily sell somebody's business straight away. We'll work with them over a period of time that's right to, hold their hand through the process, almost manage their route to an exit to achieve what they want to achieve. Or you could head over to benleonard.pro, which is my website, if you want to benefit from some of my experience in e-commerce and see how I can help you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ben, for being on. If you guys haven't joined us live, remember we do this every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific time, sellerroundtable.com/live. You get to come into the Zoom meeting, ask the experts like Ben questions on the spot. Without having to fill out that email form, you can just jump in here live, talk to them, face to face, and get your questions answered. So thank you guys so much for joining us live. The people that joined us live in the Zoom meeting, we're going to end live right now, and then we do kind of a little Q&A after the fact that does not get broadcast, does not get recorded. So if you guys want in on that, you got to go to sellerroundtable.com/live and join us in the meeting. We love having you guys. It really ups the game in terms of content, because we get to ask our guests questions that we may not have thought of. So thank you guys so much. The podcast continues to grow. If you haven't yet, please rate, review, subscribe. And we'll see you guys next time on the Seller Roundtable.